Welcome to the Tick Tock Podcast. The clock is always ticking, so let's synchronize our watches and dive in. I'm your host, Callie Brigham, and I'm here to help you make time for what matters. Hey friends, welcome to today's episode. Summer is in full swing, although that doesn't mean that today's topic isn't relevant all year round. It can mean, however, that for the momtrepreneur or mompreneur, however you like to say it, that everything is whack. I don't think we say that anymore, do we? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not what we say anymore. My kids are even saying like skibbity. I mean, okay. So as you can tell, it's summer. I'm a momtrepreneur, easier said than done. And that means my kids are around a lot. Hence, the things that I say that are cool, they're not cool. I have teenagers. And also, since this is airing the week of the 4th of July, and I, by the way, am wearing my Team USA hat that not only, of course, represents America, but also my mom gave it to me for my birthday because it is representing Team USA because the Olympics are about to start. My absolute favorite thing. But I thought it would be a great time to kick off a series that highlights the independence, get it? The independence of the momtrepreneur. The freedom is mostly great, and it's also a little bit challenging. So, this is going to be a three-part series. It's going to start with this episode. And as much as I want to and will dive into all the things to do as an entrepreneur, mompreneur, I first wanted to show you what not to do, how not to work. No, that's not right. Can that be right? How about how to take breaks, how to have endpoints, how to have boundaries, how to have peace? That sounds a little bit better. That sounds more accurate. And we're starting there because that is so much easier said than done. In an episode that we had on mom guilt, we alluded to this. When you're working, you're feeling guilty about working. And when you're not working, you're feeling guilty about not working. And that never ending cycle. So, chances are, if you are someone who is an entrepreneur, labels yourself that way, you probably and rarely have a problem thinking about working. It's usually a problem thinking about not working. And here's a little background as well, some important background to set the stage for this series. For the sake of this series, we're going to refer to an entrepreneur, momtrepreneur. Okay, you get the idea. As anyone who does anything from owning your own brick and mortar or e-commerce business, direct sales, MLM, maybe that's what you do full time, maybe you're an independent contractor or freelancer, and those who have a side hustle. In this day and age, that's probably just about everybody on here. And also setting the stage. Growing up, I was the child of two entrepreneurs. They never clocked in. There was nobody who was checking to see if they worked a 40-hour work week. They never kept track of those hours. As a matter of fact, you just worked till the job got done. You worked non-traditional hours. You worked when other people weren't working. My parents were solely responsible for their outcomes. They had all of the responsibility on their shoulders. They set the tone, they set the pace. And of course, that meant that they got to take time off without asking for vacation days. They had the freedom to maintain or grow or multiply depending on their goals and activity. They had ultimately control over their pay, their paychecks. They didn't have to answer to anyone. So, again, there's a lot of freedom in that independence, right? Of course, on the flip side of that, that also meant that sometimes they were working crazy hours and sometimes they were working way more than a traditional job, right? Because it was on their shoulders. As a kid, I spent every Saturday morning in Madison, Wisconsin, where we lived when I was growing up until high school, at the farmer's market. So we would get there at the crack of dawn. I was probably still sleeping in the back of the van. My parents owned a natural foods restaurant and bakery. So they set up the tables and the tent and sold the breads and sold the pastries and sold all the things. And I just kind of roamed the farmer's market. If you've ever been to Madison, Wisconsin, literally the best farmer's market in the world. And that's what we did every single Saturday, rain, shine. I guess you'd say sleet or snow, but we didn't have it in the winter. So I watched what this looked like for my parents to have this as a priority of when they were going to work and all the things that led up to preparing for Saturday morning and all the things that happened after Saturday morning. My dad was the owner of this bakery, and so he had a little space in our basement where he did all the paperwork, and I remember playing office in the basement. I was an extra pair of hands sometimes, probably not the best and most useful assistant, but when they needed to bake some fruit bars or things like that. So I was always around watching what this looked like. Later on, as I went into high school and my mom started her business with Mary Kay Cosmetics, I worked in my mom's office and I unpacked her product orders and I helped call her clients for their reorders. I also remember being super irritated when I wanted to talk to her and she was on the phone and I would write her notes like, "Answer me, mom. I want to go play with the neighbor or something." And I would make her circle things on the note because she was obviously more paying attention to her client or team member on the phone than she was to me. There was so many pros and cons, of course, growing up, way more pros in my opinion. But we're going to hone in on this series on that time component and what this looks like. So, I wanted to establish some background that not only have I had my own business and I've worked from home for 2 decades, but it's kind of in my DNA. It flows through my blood stream. So, we're going to talk about how not to work. You ready? Here's my top tips for you. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself why, and maybe you're like, why? No, why are you an entrepreneur? What drew you to this lifestyle? When you imagined it, what kind of schedule and life did you dream of? I often say back when I was dreaming of this life, when I did work at the TV station, which is the complete opposite of having control over my life and schedule and time, would I've wanted it to look like it does today? Would it have appealed to me? The way that I'm working now as an entrepreneur, the amount of time that I invest, my scheduling, would that be appealing to the former me? Would I say, yes, that's what I want? And if the answer is yes, you can go ahead and skip on over to the next step. If the answer is no, probably welcome to the club. It's time to get some time management going. If you're thinking, yeah, the amount of energy and time that I'm putting in would not be appealing to me. Okay, let's fix it. The second point is, how will you define the metrics of your working day? Now, that sounds really fancy, really complicated, but it's not. I want you to ask yourself, are you more of an efforts or a results based person? Are you going to have an efforts based schedule or a results based schedule? Let me define that. Attempts, phone calls, messages, time spent with your team or your clients. How do you define the success for the day? If you define it by those activities, how many attempts I do, how many phone calls I make, how many messages I leave, how much time I spend, that is efforts based. So your working day ends once you reach the efforts goal, which can take as much time or as little time as you want to. But at the end, it gives you a stopping point. For example, if you say, I'm going to make 25 client calls today, you may not end up actually talking to one person, or you might talk to 10. It might take you an hour. It might take you 3 hours. It might take you 25 minutes. But the minute that you're done with the 25, whatever you've established for yourself, you're done with your work for the day. Another efforts example would be that you're going to be working from 9 to 12. No matter what all happens, gets accomplished in those 3 hours, that is your starting point. That is your stopping point. So that's for an efforts based person, knowing that ultimately the results are going to come, but you're not going to spend your day scheduling out that aspect of it. Now, on the flip side, we have the results based person and the results based schedule. This person says, and by the way, neither one of these is better than the other one. It's just a different mentality. Psychologically, which one are you? This person says, I'm not stopping until. So I'm not stopping until I've sold XYZ for the day, or until I've scheduled this number of appointments, or until I've secured a new member of my team. The same rules apply as far as once you've hit the mark that you've set, you're done. And since we are not typically clock watchers, this will take what it takes. So you might want to make a game of it. That's what I like to do, and to beat my best or to try to give myself a reward. So, for example, okay, yesterday my efforts or my results goal took me 3 hours. Today, I'm going to see if I can accomplish it in 2 hours and 30 minutes. All right. So I might try to beat my best or that reward. And the reward for me might look like sitting on my porch, reading a book, putting on my comfy clothes and my hair, my hair up. And I'm sorry, you guys, I lost my voice last month and it's still kind of coming back. So little grace here. Putting on comfy clothes, putting my hair up. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to do. And those are signs to me that I'm taking a work break. So, efforts or results? Raise your hand if you're efforts based and you want an efforts based schedule. Raise your hand if you want results. All right. So, first, we talked about understanding why in the world am I doing this? Right? What is it that makes me passionate about figuring this out as an entrepreneur in this season? Number two, how do I best work? So, how can I have that stopping point for the day? Is it based on effort? Is it based on results? Third, number three, this leads me to, as I just mentioned, having a physical indicator that you're not working. This could mean shutting the door to your workspace. This could mean putting your hair up, putting it in a ball cap, right? Taking your jewelry off, wiping your lipstick off. This could mean turning your phone on focus mode, even deleting your communication app for the day. Yeah. So once you've achieved that, those 25 calls or whatever that is, you could delete the app that you're using off of your phone. That's an interesting thought, isn't it? This tells you and tells others that you are out of the office. I may have mentioned this before on the podcast. I know I've done a little reel on social media about it, but on Fridays, what I do is I actually unplug the router that is connected to my laptop. It's this long blue router. It's not pretty or fancy, and it kind of crosses the room because that's where the router was designed to be plugged into. And I literally unplug it from my laptop, I roll it up, and I shove it behind a credenza so you don't see it anymore, and that is my indicator that I am done. Now, if I still wanna pop into my office or if there's some extra things I want to do, I can, but it tells me visibly, physically, that I am shutting down my work. Number fourth, an expectation conversation with your family. How do they feel about what you're doing and the amount of time that you're spending on your business? Can you work as much as you want and they're fine? Or are they feeling neglected? Now, some of this is love languages based. And for example, when our kids were little and they went to sleep before we did, that is a whole nother topic, you guys. It's such a weird season and a flip flop when all of a sudden you're kissing your kids goodnight, but that means you're going to bed and they're staying up. Anyways, so when the kids went to sleep before we did, around 7:30 at night, my husband did not care if I answered messages like on my cell phone or if I worked on my laptop while we were watching a show. We used to watch shows together too now. Now I go to sleep. But my daughter will call a person out if we are watching a movie and we check our phone or look at a notification. So I need to be sure that I'm in a head and heart space, that I don't work during those times that she wants my attention. Now, we're going to talk about how to work. And of course, there is a time and a season where I'm going to express to her that this is my working time. And that should already be established before, but she might just need a little reminder, but to respect her as well, that if it's not designated a working time, then let me honor her with that and let me show her. I'll never forget. It was a few weeks ago, and I think she was showing me a piano piece or something she was learning on the piano. And she said something along the lines that they always say, like, Mom, watch this or watch me. And I actually had been working, but I put my phone down and I looked at her, and about every 5 seconds, she would look over me, real quick from the piano. Like, is she still watching me? Is she still looking at me? Is she still That was an expectation that I wanted to honor for her, that I was solely focused on what she was doing. My work in that moment could absolutely wait. 3 minutes, right? Okay. Number 5, fifthly, remember, there are hustle seasons. There are times when you're gonna stay up late, you're gonna get up early. I mean, I remember prepping before the launch of this podcast, and it was like, all systems were go, and things were a little bit upside down and a little out of whack. That is fine. I was just listening to a podcast of this gal who does tablescapes and desserts. That's like her thing. Her name's Ashley, and she got a call from Kathy Hilton, Paris's mom, and asking her if in 4 days she would fly out to California and present all of her goodies for Kathy's Christmas party. Well, of course, the next 4 days, it was, pedal to the metal, right? Ashley was going to do whatever it took. But this isn't sustainable or attractive or what the end goal is. Typically, you've chosen to be an entrepreneur because you want the flexibility and control over how you spend your time. So, number 5 is just to know, what season am I in? Am I in a hustle season, or am I in a sustainable season? And if I'm in a sustainable season, then there's different decisions that I'm going to make than if I'm in a hustle season. So understand your season is number 5. And number 6, give yourself some grace. Rarely does the thing need to happen today. Rarely does it have to happen today. Now, sometimes it does, and you're going to put that into your efforts or your results-based time block that you're doing or time work that you're doing. But rarely does it have to happen today. If you need a mental health day, do it. Ask yourself at the end of the day, what are you going to regret more? Time with your family or time spent on work? For some of you, this is going to include that so important word, delegation. You can go back and listen to that episode on delegation. But a little grace goes a long way. I have found that for most entrepreneurs and momtrepreneurs, it's not about figuring out how to work more and be more intense. Most of the time, it's how to learn how to take a little break. So now that I've taught you how not to work, rest up this week, because next week, we're going to be back at it and we really are going to work. So just to recap for you, why am I an entrepreneur? Have a little moment, a little perspective, a little audit. Is this really looking like what I imagined it to look like? And if not, it's time to make a change. Number 2, am I going to be efforts or results based, so that I know when I can take a break? So I know when I am off. So I know when I am able to give myself some space. Third, having a physical indicator of when you're not working for yourself and for other people. Fourth, having that expectation conversation with your family so that you are on the same page. And you know what? There's still going to be one-offs, and there's still going to be times where you need to remind each other that you are working, that you're not working. But having that expectation, especially when you're in a different season, like a summer season as opposed to a school season, that's going to be really healthy. Number 5, remember that there are hustle seasons, and know which season you're in. I'm in a hustle season, or I'm just in that kind of consistency season. And then number 6, giving yourself grace, friends. Okay, so I hope that this episode helped you to start to put your momtrepreneur hat on, your glasses on, your filter on, so that you can really enjoy the season that you're in, knowing when to work and when not to work. So, God bless you. Thanks for listening in, and we'll be back with part 2 next time. Thank you for joining me on the TikTok podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a 5-star review. Your feedback fuels our mission to help you master your time. Set your alarm for our next episode, and until then, make every moment count.